Joining me now to delve into the U.S. presidential race is Avis Jones-Deweever. She's the Director of Research and Public Policy at the National Council of Negro Women. She also is an Obama supporter. Also joining us is Solon Simmons. He's a professor of sociology and conflict analysis at George Mason University, specializing in U.S. politics. Hello to both of you. Thanks for talking to us tonight. Let's begin with you, Avis. After months, it feels like years of these primaries, we now know what is going to happen. How significant is tonight?
Tonight is groundbreaking. It's earth-shattering. This is an evening that personally I never thought that I would see in my lifetime. And I know that I'm not alone in that perspective. This is a night that will go down in history as one that quite literally rocked the political world right here in America. Solon,
you want to add your thoughts to that?
I think she's exactly right. I think we're all taking a very deep breath here. There's a sense of shock. We've known this was going to happen for a long time. It's been at least weeks. Some people maybe haven't accepted it, but we've all known it. And I think that but now when we see it, it's one of those things when it actually happens, it starts to rush over you. And I think that the drama that's been going on is settling in, and we're all thinking, well, now what does it mean? And that's where we are now, is trying to make some sense of the bigger picture and get a feel for what has just happened here.
And what do you think it does mean? It feels tonight like the real race has started.
I think so. I think the race is on. I think that the race between the two major players, as it was going to be for a long time, is happening. I mean, my sense of it is that this great drama we've been watching, it's been between two people, but they're placeholders. They're placeholders for the establishment, the insider, the person who, if not entitled, was certainly expected to be dominant. I mean, think about how powerful Hillary Clinton was back in December. We never would have thought we'd be here. And the outsider, the movement leader, the person who has been out in the field and grew from outside up, and who actually seems to practice what he preaches. He says it, and he follows through in moments. It's almost shocking. We say, does he really believe this? Is he really going to be like that? And he seems to be revealing that again and again in his behavior. So that's, to me, what stands out as so surprising about him.
Avis, we're still waiting for Senator Clinton to make her remarks tonight. Do you think that she is looking to be vice president, and do you think Barack Obama wants her to be his running mate?
Well, I think she's made no secret about the fact, and her handlers have made no secret about the fact that, indeed, she would be willing to accept the vice presidential role. However, I'm not so sure that the Obama campaign would be open to that prospect. This has been a very gritty campaign at times, up until the last 24 hours even, where things were being said that were probably not very nice in terms of references to Barack Obama. So there is an issue there. Also, there are issues with regards to possible scandals that may still be out there that we don't know everything about, with regards to funding of the presidential library for Bill Clinton, other issues regarding his possible philandering that were just sort of released in a very controversial Vanity Fair article just the other day. So there are other sort of skeletons in the closet that I'm sure that the Obama campaign does not want to sort of have to run against if she were on the ticket. On the other hand, it's very difficult to sort of offend a very strong and very fervent groundswell of support that she's been able to nurture over the past few months. So she's been quite difficult in terms of how this whole issue has arisen right here on this historic night, where it seems as if she's really trying to elbow her way on the ticket, whether or not Barack wants her to be there.
Solon, Avis brings up a very good point, which is the strength of the Clintons within the Democratic Party. If she were not to be asked to share that ticket with Barack Obama, what does this mean for the party? And is there a Democratic Party without the Clintons?
I think the Democratic Party has survived quite a few things, and it'll survive the Clintons, and the Clintons will still play a role. And Bill Clinton has been a very interesting ex-president. I think he's been on the model of Jimmy Carter, and he's doing a good job there. I'm not sure whether it would be a good idea or not for Obama to bring in the Clintons. I mean, it sort of depends on what you think about Bill Clinton, really, and that is it method? Yeah, is it method or madness? In the sense that is the stuff that he's been doing just kind of craziness, as the article that we just heard suggested might be, or has he been planning this all along? If he's planning it all along, then that might be good for Obama because he can plant these bombs for McCain as well. But if it is a kind of madness, you don't want him prowling around your campaign, I would imagine.
I want to talk a little bit about the perceived weaknesses of Barack Obama. We heard Senator McCain speak of a few of them tonight, and we can just imagine that this is going to be the focus of the campaign moving forward. Solon, I want to get your thoughts on this. He talked about how he was the bigger and better agent of change, and he talked about Barack Obama's lack of experience. Of course, there's about 30 years age difference between the two of them, never mind lack of, or less political experience. Do you think that this is going to be a big problem for Barack Obama moving forward?
Well, I think the Democrats should be a bit worried. It's a fantastic night, and I think everyone, the Obama campaign should revel in this and enjoy it as much as the rest of his competitors will allow him to. But there are weaknesses here, and some of them are what I'd call structural, in the sense that they're built into the very composition of the electorate, and we've heard a little bit about that, the voters he's had trouble with. Some of them are more incidental or a matter of circumstance. The Jeremiah Wright affair could have played out quite differently, and that was, I think there was something about that which played out about the worst way it could have. I called it the "I Have a Dream" scream. It was replayed in this terrible way that put the worst possible light on that event. And so I think that if you look at what happened after that, we're talking after the March, April, and then through May. He won maybe 2 out of 7 contests. He sort of limped across the finish line. He had a lot of trouble. So, and the structural problem is related to this incidental problem. These things, if he can fix one, he can fix the other. I personally think he needs to tell the story of why he was in that church for that period of time, what it was that was so wonderful about it. And I think there are a lot of things that were wonderful about it he can reveal, but people need to understand it, because the American people just don't get it. They don't get it. They're, in the same way they think he's a Muslim, they now think that he's part of some kind of extremist Afrocentric cult, and it's just not fair. It doesn't do justice to Trinity. So that's a story he must tell, in my view, or else he's in big trouble.
Avis, what do you think about that? Do you think he should look back and talk about Jeremiah Wright again, or leave it in the past?
Jeremiah Wright is not going to go away. The Republicans will not allow him to go away. So I think that's a very wise observation, that he does need to delve into that more deeply. He needs to really talk about the fact that church is very much involved in community service. It has all these ministries that goes out and feeds the hungry. It clothes the people who don't have any sort of clothes to put on. It helps people with their huge age ministry. It really relates to the people in a way that really resonates with who Barack Obama is as a human being. He's the type of person who is out there in the streets organizing people. And so I really believe that that's the real draw that he had to that church. He needs to explain that a little bit better. He went there a little bit with his race speech. He's gone there since a little bit more by talking about the fact that a church is more than the pastor, the church is the people, the church is the ministry. He needs to delve a little bit more into that. Also, there's a cultural dynamic here that I think plays a part in this role as well. It might be a little bit frightening to people who are not used to going into a church to see a very vocal and loud minister and understand that that is not an abnormal circumstance. It's not unusual for an African-American minister to reach a crescendo in his delivery of his sermon that would be very vocal and very loud and very visual in terms of his outward appearances and pointing and waving and all of those sorts of things. But to an individual who's used to a very calm sort of delivery with regards to their worship experience, that could be perhaps frightening, and particularly frightening within a culture that already sort of sees African-American men specifically as threatening. So he needs to somehow bridge that cultural divide as well and give the American people an education. He started on that with his race speech in Philadelphia. Perhaps he needs to go there a little bit more.
And so can he help bridge that gap by choosing a vice presidential candidate who will have that sort of appeal? I'm going to put this question to both of you before we go to a break. Avis, I'll begin with you. If you had to throw out a name, who would it be?
Ah, wow. Put me on the spot. A lot of people are talking Jim Webb. I'm from Virginia, so a lot of people are talking about him. Senator who would sort of buttress John McCain's lock on the veterans feel. He's also very strongly anti-war. He has, in fact, a son over there fighting at the moment. And so this is something that a lot of people have thrown around as a possible very strong vice presidential candidate. I would also suggest perhaps the governor of Arizona, a woman, who I think would be an outstanding candidate. She has someone who has a huge reputation of being able to work across party lines, being able to be very strong and very persistent in her ideals, and also would be able to bring in the women's vote without having to rely on Hillary Clinton specifically. So I would suggest those two as possible vice presidential candidates that I think would be a great asset to the ticket.
That was a great answer on the fly. Solon, you had more time
Yeah.
to think of an answer.
No, those are good too. I mean, you know, there's so many possible candidates. We can make stories about any of them if we'd like. That the Jim Webb thing makes sense to me. I personally think that John Edwards is still interesting. If Americans are uncomfortable with angry black men, they like angry white men. So those they might be helpful. So I think either one of those.
Avis?
He's telling the truth.
Yeah, well, you know, just as I see it. There's also the class dynamic. We've seen this playing out Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Both of those start to appeal in that way. You know, and they're quite different, completely different feel, different constituencies they might appeal to, but each one, I mean, there's so many interesting people, but those are just two others.
All right, great stuff. Solon Simmons, Avis Jones-Deweever, thank you so much.